Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Paint with Sean. So today we are continuing on the Fire Sky Mountain snowy winter scene picture that we've been working on here for a little bit. So we were working on bringing the path around last time, and we've got a pretty decent little structure here. So we're going to add in some bushes and some rocks and really start to kind of bring this thing together here. We've got some good motion in the water going on, and we're going to break it up with a few things going on here. So I'm going to add a little bit of bushes over here in the corner to kind of break this up, and we're going to add a little bit of detail up in here to sort of break those things up. And again, I want to have some rocks start to appear, and then they're going to have heavily get thicker and sort of come up over the top here and create another layer where the water kind of comes in behind it here. So I appreciate you hanging out with me today. We're gonna maybe see if we can finish this painting today. Let me get my little timer going, or else I lose track of time very quickly. So we'll get started today. Again, we're working with a real snowy looking scene, so we want to kind of keep the tops of everything fairly white, and colors are a little bit dark maybe under some of the bushes, but even a lot of the rocks and the water and stuff has a lot of snow on it everywhere. So we really want to create that emphasis on the winter scene. So all right, so now we're going to get our little round brush. I have this one that's kind of half round. It's an oval shape, I guess, better term for it. And this little breakup of the bristles really kind of works well for bushes and that sort of thing. So anytime we're making these colors for bushes and shrubs and all of that kind of stuff, trees, pretty well anything, it always starts with a dark color in the back, and then we just kind of add some lighter colors as we go. So we're going to keep this fairly dark on ourselves, and you really need that dark color to see the light show through. Okay, so I really want to get quite a bit of paint going on this, and the color of the background is really not that important, but the shape is very much what we're looking for, and the placement. Okay, so I don't want these bushes to be very big. So I'm just going to push a little bit and get just a little bit of this paint coming off of these things. Okay, and you can see that I don't have to push too much, and it starts to create that little bit of bush-like structure. Okay, so just a little bit. All right, and then I'm going to load up some more paint going on over here, and I'm going to put a little bush structure over in this corner. Okay, and again, don't worry about how much it looks like a bush when you're putting the light color on. Okay, we're really just looking for some kind of stick shapes and things going on here. Okay, I'm just gonna give this a little more of a foot coming out here. Work on some little arms and things. Again, these are never uniform. We don't want them to be exactly perfect. Okay, so we just want to have an indication of some things going on over here. Okay, so I'm going to get a little more of that black color going on, a little of the brown, some green in there. Okay, we just want to make that dark color going on in the background, and then we'll come back with some highlights here. Okay, so I've got sort of a little breakup of that going on. I might even put one more little indication of some bushes going on over here. Who knows? It doesn't take much. Okay, we really don't want that to go too high. I want that to be kind of small and just sort of running along the side over there. Okay, and then in the very far back, we just are going to do a little bit of a lift. Okay, just some tiny indications of some things. Okay, not going to put too much going on in the back in these, because I am going to put a fence at some point. Okay, so I'm just going to throw a couple little indications of some things going on the tops of these little hills. Okay, and then we can come back and highlight those a little bit later and create us a little bit of things going on. Okay, so we've got a little bit of a dark color going on. I think I want to add just a tad bit more down in here. Really give it that good base to highlight the white when we put it on. Okay, because we really want to just get a base color going on in here, and then we're going to add some lighter color to it. Okay, so it just wants it to be sort of the shape of a bush, and we always want to do all of our dark color first, and then we'll come back with the light color all the way after that, and then we can kind of adjust it as we go. Okay, so now I'm going to put a breakup piece. So I'm going to have this path continue, but it's going to go behind it. So this piece is going to be all the way down to the bottom. So you can see this one I didn't, kind of sets it back a little bit. This one I'm going to put it all the way down to the bottom of this. Okay, and have it come up a little bit. Okay. All right, so we're going to make this one a little bit bigger, just for the indication of closeness. Okay, so we've got sort of a bush shape going on here. We can bring it up a little bit if we want to get a little crazy. Okay, and then we can add some highlight to that, and then we can continue our path on behind it. Okay, so again, I'm going to close off this little gap right here, so we only really have to kind of continue from the edge, because we can also come back with a little bit of extra going on. So really I should have continued this path, but I want to bring some rock structure and stuff down on in here, so we're going to keep it like that for the second. Okay, so a little bit of dark in here. Really don't want too much of that light to show through on those. Okay, so that looks pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and wash my brush. So we really want to get all that dark color out of there, and I just have a little silly pineapple looking water cup I've been using pretty much every time I do this. So just going to kind of scrub it against the side of this thing and get some water on it. And this is a thick brush with a lot of paint in it, so it's a little bit tougher to wash in this cup on its own. I haven't mentioned this in any of my previous videos, but anytime you are doing painting, you always want to wash your brushes immediately after you get done. So when they're still wet, you want to try and get as much of that paint out of it as possible. So you can see there's still so much of that in there. So that may be a little bit tougher to do with that one. Okay, so let's see if we can really scrub those bristles a bit one more time and try and get some of that extra paint out of there, because I really want it to be a nice contrasting color of some greens and whites. I don't want that dark color to really show in there, so we may not get all of it out of there, but that's all right. It takes a lot of paint to get it to come off of this. So okay, so make sure you've got your paper towels handy. As you see, you can really ruin them very quickly. All right, so I'm going to get a little bit of green here. Okay, and I've got a couple different green colors here. So I'm just going to sort of mix those together a little bit. And I'm going to make these colors brighter in the front, so that they sort of pop and stand out a little bit more than some of the ones that we did in the back. Okay, so I'm just going to tap a little bit, and this will sort of fill in some of those gaps as well. Okay, and again, this is just indications, guys. There's no real right or wrong method to this, but you do need a good amount of paint going on usually, and you just don't want to cover up all the dark that you put in. Let some of that hang out in there. Okay. We'll come in here with some of our green and continue with our little structures of pieces going on in our, and again, we just want to kind of push a little bit. We don't want to cover it all up. We want to make sure that it sort of has that shape of a bush. and you can still see some of that dark stuff going on in the back. Okay. Push a little bit. Okay. See, you can immediately add some little pieces that sort of stand out as little bush structures. Okay. We're just getting some indications going on over here. And then that little flick. Okay, so we want to throw some grass in there. You can always give a little flick upwards, and it always gives it that little look of some grass going on. Okay, so let's continue on over here. We'll get a little bit more of this highlight color going on. Okay, and we just want to sort of highlight the tips of these things. Okay, so as you make those little patterns, that's what creates the shape of the bush. Okay, so you don't want to eliminate all the dark stuff. We want to make sure we leave some of that in there. Very important. Okay, I'll get a little bit of this lighter color. Oh yeah, make that one really pop out in the front. Look at that guy. Get him up in here. A little more in the back. Yeah. Get a little couple of these pops going on. Okay. So we've got some good color going on here. So I'm just going to try and get as much of this paint off as I can in the first place. And we're going to wash this bad boy one more time. I'm going to grab me some paper towels. I've got a little paper towel roll over here, so if I need to get new ones like this situation, I can. Alright. So again, I got these other brushes sort of just soaking in here, but most of that comes out just hanging out in the water here. So again, even if your water's real nasty and dirty, that's okay. I definitely recommend also change your water in between each painting. I don't reuse it in between paintings, but typically we can wash the brushes good enough with even just dirty water and get through one little session of painting, since we're only doing a half an hour at a time here. So we've got some good dark and some light combinations going on, and we can continue to add little detailed pieces as we go. So I know I've got still a lot of green going on in this brush, so I'm going to try and get a lot of that out. And again, if a little bit of that comes with it, that's okay. We can always come back later with a little more of the highlight color that we want. So we're going to use just a straight white for highlight because it's easy with the winter scene we've got going on here. So again, I'm just going to pull some of that white out over here and tap it into the brush. Okay, that really sort of like loads it down within it. All right, and then I'm just going to come in here with some white highlights. We don't want it to disappear. Okay, there's already a lot of white going on around behind it. So if we put too much white on the front, it's going to make it just kind of disappear into the background. Okay, so we really just want to add some highlight pieces to it. Just a little bit of snow on the mountain, snow on the bushes, snow sort of everywhere. Okay, so just a little bit. Alright, same thing over here. Couple little highlight dabs. Show you what you're working with. Okay, and sometimes you find where that edge is, and you can just use that a little bit. Okay, and don't worry, if it doesn't come out perfect, you can always go back and fix it. Okay, so we just want to leave these little indications, alright? That difference in dark and light is very important there. Alright, let's get our last bush dotted up with a little bit here. Just want this to be a real snowy bush. They seem to be very, very alive in the winter time. Let's get a little more going on out here, and this one will have a little extra contrast because it's over the white water. Okay, sometimes you need to turn your brush a little, give it some different angle to it. Okay, see how it's coming off. You can adjust it here and there. Get some more paint. All right, getting some good colors going on here. I like it. So it really kind of just looks like it's got a dusting of snow here and there. And again, I got to lift this up because I've got this little lip down here that sort of makes it tough to get all the way down to the bottom. Okay, so we've got this indication of a real nice bush in the way here. And you can play with this as much as you want, but now that we've sort of got this edge going on here, I'm going to come to this little medium brush. I really like the size of this one for making rocks. So again, rocks to me are pretty simple. It's dark on one side and light on the other side, depending on which side the light is coming from. So in a lot of paintings, you know, unless you have like a actual sun light source within the middle and then light is coming out both sides, it typically tends to come from one side of the picture or the other. So that makes it sort of easy to determine where you're going to put some of your lights and darks. Okay, so I've got black here, and I just want to dull this down slightly with some white. So I don't want too much white. I want this to still be fairly dark, but I don't want it to be ultra dark here. These really dark pieces, we don't want quite to show up like that. Okay, so I want a couple of rocks going on in here. So maybe we'll put one right here. Okay, and rocks don't really have a determined shape, right? Sometimes they're pointy on top, sometimes they're round. It's kind of up to you to determine what you want your rock to look like, depending on, you know, where you're at. Depending on, you know, if you're in the Rocky Mountains or whatever it may be, sometimes that changes the shape of the rock compared to if you're, say, somewhere on the East Coast. Who knows? Okay, so we're going to put in a few indications for the dark areas of our rocks here. All right, I'm going to put one over here. It's going to be a little bit bigger rock. Okay, want this one to be a little wider at the top here. And make sure you got enough paint to cover this up. Sometimes, especially if you've got some water on your brush, it kind of thins the paint. So you have to use a little bit more paint to get it to cover up on your canvas. All right. And rocks are one of those that you want, you know, a real solid line that indicates exactly where it is. All right. So you really want this to be nice and thick. Okay. And I make them sort of flat on the bottom, so it indicates that they're kind of sitting down in something. Sometimes there's one rock by itself, but as you can see, I just added one little extra bump over here that gives the indication of a top of a second rock. So you can do this on either side, and then having it come down just a little bit below the other one indicates that it's sort of in front of it. Okay, so we can again get the shape of the rock going on, and then we can put in our highlight color that will really show where the edge of the rock actually is. Okay, so just kind of breaking in some of the little shapes of what we want them to look like, and then we can add a little bit more to them as we go. So we got a little bump right there, and you know, maybe there's another little rock that lives back here, just a little tiny one going on the side of this. Okay, so in the rocks that we already have, you can see that constant light and dark back and forth is what really makes them look like an uneven surface. The more variation of light to dark, the less even that it looks. Okay, so I'm going to put one more. I'm going to put one down here and make it look kind of closer. Okay, so I need a little more paint on my brush. Again, you really want this to be a solid piece. There we go. You don't want that to look like it's... And sometimes it's just one rock that's kind of a little odd shaped and just sort of comes out over here. And you can make up your own little world here as you go. Okay. So, we've got a few rocks going on here. We're going to wash our brush off and get into some white. And so again, you guys can play with this to your heart's content as far as how much detail you put into these, but this dark structure with some very crisp strokes of white, and I say that with a very crisp P. The definition of the edges is really very important on this. So because I have some water on this brush, I want to make sure I get plenty of paint, because this black is already kind of wet, so it's not going to sit there as a flat color. It's going to want to blend with this. So you got to be very confident when you come in to make this stroke. Okay, so if you're on a little tiny rock, you don't need as much paint, right? And you want to paint the highlight side first. Okay, so I just got a little bit of paint on there, and I'm going to sort of blend back in to this little dark area. Okay, so just a little bit. It doesn't take too much. Now, if I want this to look like two rocks, I would start at the top, kind of in the middle, but on the right-hand side, and I'm going to come down like this, so it separates the two. Okay, and then you can sort of blend it in however you want. Okay, so the more white you make it, the flatter it's going to look. Okay, and we can come back in a sec when I don't have white on the brush, and we can put some dark back into it. And this is where you really start to create some actual contrast. So you can see sometimes it doesn't take too much, and just that little bit that I added to it kind of makes it pop. But I really want to get that nice crisp white on there. Okay, so don't be afraid to reload often. That's something I had to learn the hard way. Alright, so I want to sort of shape this rock as just kind of a little round one. Okay, so we just sort of cut that difference here, and we're able to sort of blend back in a little bit of what's going on in that rock. Okay, so instantly you can see that gradient blended effect makes it look round. The sharper that line is, the more hard cut that edge will look. Okay, so again, we're just creating that nice solid white, and just kind of blend it back in. Okay, so we just want to make sure that there's not really a solid white line and not really a solid black line. It just kind of blends together. So you see how there's two little rocks there. Okay, so we're going to keep working on the rocks, just touching these up a little bit. Okay, and we always want the one in the front to have the dark layer that defines it. Okay, so the white, if I want this one to look behind, I need to define it here and sort of bring this back. Okay, so the white's still going to be on the same side, and this one will do the same. So this dark line defines the difference. So I need a little more paint here. I'm just going to bring this down, blend it back in. And we've got our little rocks. Okay, now if I just want to throw a little dot of some white over here, it kind of breaks up the shape of that rock. Okay, so if you've got a little extra white in there, you can change the shape of the rock. Now, if I've got too much in there, this is where we can start to play a little bit and wash off this white. We've got the shape of our rocks working pretty good. I like them. We actually didn't put any white on the one in the back, so we can touch that one up too. Okay, so I'm just going to take a little bit of dark here and sort of dab it in some of this white so it's not a pure dark color. Okay, and we can come in here and just put little touches on this. Just little tiny touches on these overly white areas can really put some dimension into what's going on. So it's not a solid flat color all the way across. Okay? So you can decide how much you want to play with this and add your little depth pieces. Also, if you put a dark area underneath, it will look like the rock is sitting on top of the ground. But if you leave it light underneath this, it looks like the ground comes up over the top of it. Okay? So again, just some little pieces to play around with. And I've got this brush dirty, but I'm going to throw some white on here just to kind of play with this little rock over here, and just barely an indication of something going on. Okay? So we don't really know all the time. It's always kind of just a fun little piece, and we just put our little bits in here and there. And that little piece is kind of got some movement happening. Okay, so I like the rocks. They look real good. Now anywhere that isn't rocky, I'm going to come back with my little liner brush. Again, I want this to be clean, nice and white. Okay, so you can get these, not many hairs there to dry off. And I'm just going to get into my white here, and I'm just going to roll this so it sort of rolls it into a fine point. Okay, and I just want this to be the little detail brush. Indications of where this water line is at the edge. Okay, so we're just going to have this kind of coming in. I want this to be a real strong white though. Okay, so we just got some indication that there's water coming up over the little bank there. Just going to give it a little bit of white going on the edge here. And that white really just indicates moving water more than anything. So we can even bring this up on the shore a little bit over here if we need to. Okay, I really like what's going on here. Those look good. Give it a little bit of distance out here. Okay, we got some movement happening. Okay, I like it. We'll add a couple little more streaks to this side. Really want to get that nice and white. Really makes a big difference. Good, so that gives sort of the indication that it kind of comes uphill a little bit. All right, so we've got our little sort of pathway coming around and things happening, and we've got our little area coming over here. So I want to continue this pathway. We've only got a couple minutes left, so I'm actually just going to put a little more detail into the pathway before we continue the last part of this video, which will be the pathway that sort of disappears into some rocks and adding some trees in there. So we're going to continue on with this until our time runs out, but when that does, we will end for today, and we can move on into our next little video and see if we can get a finished painting out of this one. This has been quite an adventure, and I appreciate you guys coming along for the ride with me. This has been quite an adventure, so let me get a little bit more of this. I want it to be a light color, but I want it to have a little bit of color to it so you can still see the things happening. And this is always sort of the bravery test. So what color is it actually going to look like on the canvas compared to what I have made? Okay, and so you can see this little liner brush can make quite a fine little streak here, and especially if you make the paint really thin, so then it really doesn't take too much for it to come off the paint. Okay, so you can see it just a little bit. Doesn't take much. barely touching this. Okay, barely touching. Just little tiny pressures. Okay, so we've got some things. If you put them right from the edge, it looks like they're coming off the back. And if you put them right below the edge, it looks like they're in front. Okay, so the farther down we come, we can have a few little bigger ones. Okay, and these are just indications of some little things going on. There's really not a term for it, little sticks or whatever you want them to be. So we just got a couple little things happening here. And again, you really want to keep reapplying if it starts to look kind of sparse on what you're putting out there. Okay. That's a big one. Oh yeah. Got some good things going on here. And I want this to sort of be a farther away. So the closer you get and the taller the stuff is, well, the taller the stuff is, the closer it will look. Okay, so our time is up for today. We've got some good indications of some depth going on here, and we can continue to add our little details as we go. I'll probably put a fence in the back, and maybe we'll add a couple little more bushes or whatever it may be. But I appreciate your time today. We're going to continue on and see if we can finish up in the next video our little painting, and I guess I will see you in the next video. Have a great day.